What up, YouTube Elleix? Come back at you with another custom StarCraft cast. Today, we have another matchup featuring the Cosmonarchy mod. If you're not familiar with this mod, this is effectively a Brood War overhaul mod that adds new units, new mechanics, and all sorts of things to the game. And we have the developer on for a co-cast, Pronogo. Pronogo, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well, Elleix. I gotta say, I'm looking forward to this matchup. I, of course, do appreciate being able to come back at you with another cast, another co-cast joining you once again. For those of you who may have missed that previous one that we did feature Neblime versus Terran. This time he's going up against a different Terran, though, awhile, our reigning champion. Not only that, but this is the reigning Grand Finals, a rematch between TVP. We got to see who comes out up ahead now that we're getting this matchup reduxed for us here on a brand new map.
Absolutely, and we'll go ahead and introduce these players as well. Spawning on the top left-hand side of the map, it looks like our orange-ish Terran player. This is going to be awhile going against, like you said, Pronogo. Neblime spawning on the bottom right-hand side of the map, playing the white-ish Protoss, but you said in the last cast as well, there are how many colors? Like 100 different colors in this mod?
Yeah, it's close to 120, and
wow.
Most of them are selectable in in competitive. There are some colors that we've removed because they're a little bit too much of an eye strain or a little bit too hard to spot on the minimap or stuff like that. To be specific, awhile always rocks the pumpkin color, and Neblime, in this case, has rolled Alice Blue is my prediction there. And you can always confirm that by mousing over the armor tooltip and holding shift.
Oh, very cool. It looks like you are correct. It is the Alice Blue color. I really like this color. It's almost like an Arctic kind of color, and it looks like we already have some action in the middle of the map. Ooh, okay.
Oh yeah, Neblime bringing his scribe forward to do mine-sweeping duties, and he's made a Hierophant, which is a little bit of a new revelation in Protoss build orders, so to speak. It was kind of ignored for a while due to its cost, but you can see there it is applying a slow whenever it hits that vulture. Makes it a lot more approachable for the other units.
Very cool. And I saw some animation on this Protoss scribe as well. There was some electricity on it. Also looked like it slowed it down. Was that from the Hierophant as well, or sorry, the Hierophant?
So the electricity that was on the scribe was because the lobotomy mine doesn't blow units up. It stuns them, and then afterwards they are slowed for an additional 3 seconds. So that's what you were seeing there, the vultures laying their stun mines instead of them blowing everything up.
Gotcha. That was my guess, was the lobotomy mine, because you know, I still haven't actually played this mod. I've only ever done casting of it. I do plan on playing it.
Looks like we got a couple of Goliaths moving.
And yes, some Goliaths moving in the middle of the map as well, 2 of them. Now, the Goliaths from our last co-cast, we learned are very strong units. How do you think our Protoss player's going to fare against 2 Goliaths with his current composition?
Well, the Hierophant does eventually stack up an attack speed slow. You'll see the overlay turn red. That being said, there's not so many other melee units here for a frontline for Neblime. I think he might be in trouble.
Okay, yeah, this is looking like a lot of Terran units. I mean, we do have some melee units in response to this, a few Zealots, but I don't know if this is enough melee units to deal with these vulture equivalents, and the Goliaths.
Oh, yeah. Just raining terror down onto the Protoss army. Neblime's going to need to get out of dodge. He's doing really well to avoid the mine detonations and just throw a couple of frontline units in there, but even though one of those Goliaths is very, very low, they are still raining absolute havoc.
Yeah, they're really taking out a lot of these Protoss units, and on top of this engagement, awhile doing a great job at getting these lobotomy mines on the field. Oh, and it looks like the natural base also spotted by our Terran player.
Yeah, indeed. It looks like the Hierophant will take a little bit of a bruising, but it should be just fine to clean up this Goliath. You can see how powerful it can still be. Just trying to march it down, but not quite able to make it happen. I will say, it seems that the opinion shifted on the Goliath from me saying it was OP but nobody else to everybody else starting to agree with me, Elleix. So I will say that if people try to do this thing with the Goliaths on the most recent patch, they might have a little bit of trouble. It's a little bit less powerful. Still really good. Probably still OP, in fact, but not quite as powerful as what we're seeing here. So awhile is enjoying them while they last.
That is fair. Fair enough. So would you say that the Goliath had a nerf since the last time we did a cast, or I guess is this kind of version dependent?
Yeah, it's version dependent. So this version, they are still just as strong as in the last cast we saw them in. However, if you went to play the game right here, right now, on the most recent cutting edge version of the game, you would see that they have 20 less health and 2 less damage per hit, which doesn't sound like a lot of damage nerf, but the Goliath attacks really fast. So that's where its DPS is going to be cut a little bit.
That's fair. And then when you add up, you know, a bunch of Goliaths, that 2 damage will really kind of go a long way. So it makes sense. Good to know.
Yeah. See, we balance this game. It's not like StarCraft 1 normally.
Yeah, exactly. It's actually balanced. There's nothing terribly OP, potentially, maybe. I mean, you know, you're the expert, not me.
Wink.
Wink, wink.
Wink. Well, if they get to tier 3, that might change. You know, it might be really obvious what's OP and what's not. But one of the little silver linings of having the tech tree locked behind so much extra resources is that if something is OP, you still have the counterplay of denying your opponent the ability to get there. So we'll see if that ends up being a factor. But I will say, as far as this game goes, both of our players seem to be on relatively even steps. Neblime does have a slight worker lead, and that is despite the early damage he took.
Right. Yeah, that's actually a good point. And we also had that witness there spotting the Terran army, and this will also give Neblime a little bit of insight onto what his opponent is up to with army composition. And it looks like a similar army composition to what we saw earlier in the game, just Vultures and Goliaths. So AU64 happy with what appears to be a mech play. Would you say that this is more or less standard in a PVT matchup in this mod?
Actually, there's been a lot of people exploring Bio versus Protoss, but as of right now, a lot of people are also on the Goliath train, the Gravy train. I haven't seen so many Vultures in a little bit, though. AU definitely surprising with that. Usually those units, because they do require that little bit of extra APM to set down the mines, fall out of favor as the mid-game starts to open up. And we are nearing it with about 10 minutes on the clock almost. And as I say that, the Palladiums are being kicked in as well. Ayud's sharking around with his Vultures to scout ahead. He wants to see if he can get his Phalanx, as the siege tank equivalent, up before the Protoss takes a third base. That seems to be his objective right now.
Oh, interesting. I don't know if I've actually seen the Phalanx yet, so I'm excited to see if that's what comes out from this Terran player. It looks like both players are kind of just having a little bit of a standoff right now. They seem to know exactly where each other's army is. So these units kind of just chilling for now, and more lobotomy mines being placed on the field as well. Luckily, this Witness will be able to spot those. So is the Witness, does it have any other abilities, or is it effectively just an observer?
It's a slightly tankier observer, and you don't need to upgrade its movement speed or vision range. It just has its stats by default, because upgrades, instead of being something you research, are actual different units that you add to your composition. That's sort of how we conceptualize it. It looks like, as of right now, with the Witness spotting all of the mines, it does seem to me that Ayud wants to fall back to a more defensive angle, and his Phalanxes are out. Entirely remodeled. They might not look at it at first, but I promise, those are a completely new model. It's just very faithfully recreated.
Oh, very cool. Very well done. And so what's the difference between, like, you know, the Phalanx versus our vanilla siege tank?
When deployed, the Phalanx will lose its armor, and it gains a mortar attack, which actually has a projectile instead of being hit scan, like an instant hit. When not deployed, they have a whopping 4 armor. So their tank mode is more about tanking, and their siege mode is a little bit more about prolonged skirmishes. So they can miss their targets, but we'll see if Ayud even bothers to deploy them, because he is moving in.
Yeah, he's really going for an aggressive push right here. I'm not so sure. It doesn't look like Neblime is eager to engage this army, and the Phalanxes are deploying indeed. A lot of these units are kind of stacked up, though, and the Zealots trying to get an engagement on this army, but Neblime being forced back. Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was a big move there. A couple of the good targeting selection from Ayud. I was worried that he was going to splash a lot of his own Vultures, but just like in StarCraft 1, when you're trying to target versus a Protoss army, you want to force target the Phalanxes onto the Drakodins, the backline. Like, you can really much map that kind of engagement out to default StarCraft 1 TVP, tanks versus Dragoons, Vultures versus Zealots. That's how people play it. And Ayud is familiar with that. He's like a high, A rank, S rank player in StarCraft 1. So translating those skills very nicely right now. It doesn't always happen because Cosmonarchy is very different. But Ayud seems to be sitting pretty, and he's coming in for a flank, it looks like.
Yeah, it does. And mismanaging, or maybe it was on purpose, one of the Phalanxes distracting the Blime's army. But looks like Aud deciding to go back. I also see a Protoss unit here. The Protoss, let me see if I get this right. The Unar or Unar? Let me know if I said that correctly.
Unar, yeah, that's right.
Now, what is this thing?
Well, that's a bit of a sniper unit. It's actually a brand new unit that was just added in our most recent update. Happy to see Neblime showing it off. It's not going to have too much value near the front line, but every time it attacks, it's going to be a little bit, it's going to hit from a bit of a further range. Right now, it's not finding the most impact, but it is helping to bring down those Goliaths, and maybe that will let the Zealots engage onto that backline. Right now, the mech army from Aud is doing so much work.
So much work, and it looks like Neblime moving forward, trying to get into the business of these phalanxes, and not doing a bad job either. There's this Terran Shaman, though, and as I recall, I believe the Terran Shaman was a healing unit, if I am not mistaken.
Yes.
The Unar does go down, though. I think the Shaman doing a lot to keep some of these units alive.
Indubitably. The other thing I want to point out here is that there was a bit of a flank of 3 unsieged phalanxes moving in, and they absorbed a lot of damage from the Architects, which are Neblime's artillery, his choice to counter the moves of this artillery-focused Terran player. And with no front line, the Zealots stay alive way too long. There's not too much that you can use the sieged phalanxes to break the shields of the Protoss, because individually, if they're not focus firing, the flash shielding actually kicks in between their shots and absorbs some of that damage. So definitely a struggle for Aud, and the fact that he lost so many of his expensive mech units, he is basically pushing forward with a very tier 1 oriented composition, while the Protoss has survived and transitioned into, tier 2, tier 3 tech with the Unitary Union units.
Interesting. And I really like this design on the Architect. It's so cool looking. And it looks like Neblime also moving forward towards the Terran side of the map. He was getting really pushed against by that Terran player, and he's going for an attack of his own. And we'll see if he can do any damage. It looks like these lobotomy mines are getting taken out at a range from these Architects.
I gotta praise Aud for placing them down and also respecting them. You'll never believe this, LAX, but spider mine equivalents and doing damage to their owners, that does happen a lot in Cosmonarchy. You stun your own units because your enemy runs up on you. That's exactly what has happened so many times, and now you're really seeing the power of the Architect, meanwhile, as he ranges down a couple of phalanxes that he spots with one of his witnesses. So, Aud does well to get his mines up, but right now he's struggling to get a good defensive emplacement going. He's got a 4th base. He's not really going to be able to saturate it too easily, because if he moves workers over there, it'll alert Neblime of the presence of that. Oh, he just unpacked his Shaman. Now he's going to pack it back. When the Shaman is deployed, it acts as a detector, so he snipes one of the witnesses. That needs to happen a little bit more frequently. He needs that eagle eye to spot where the distortion is. And he will be transferring a couple of workers, but look at this. Another new unit moving up to the 12 o'clock location. It's the Vibrance, permanently cloaked until it attacks, and when it attacks, it's like a pulse that deals damage across everything around it.
Oh, that is so cool. It almost reminds me of, I don't know, something in between an Arbiter and a Tempest, and attacking this Terran Ministry, base number 4. Oh, these poor Terran Masons as well getting caught in that crossfire.
I gotta say, there is one thing I have to criticize Neblime for. He did just hemorrhage, I want to say, 4 Architects. So there's the GOAT signal here for Aud. Can he break what Neblime has?
And we'll see the Zealots running to engage this Terran mech army. Meanwhile, it looks like Aud pulling back just a little bit. I wonder if he's going to deploy these phalanxes closer to home. This Terran Ministry, base number 3, I believe, is preemptively lifted. The Vibrance... Oh, this one with 3 kills does go down in the natural base location. And another one in
there's always the one in the main with 11 kills to its name.
Wow.
Yeah.
So is there a cooldown before it cloaks again?
Yep, it's about 2 seconds after not attacking. But as long as it keeps attacking, which, as you can see, it is, it will remain revealed. Definitely can be a bit more annoying than some of the other Protoss units. Oh no, he's splashing his own Masons with the phalanxes. The Zealots are mixed in. Man, Aud's economy has really collapsed. He's only got 36 workers. I don't think, if he doesn't win with an A move across the map right here and now, it's going to be real tough pickings for him.
Yeah, at this point, he's going to have to force a base race or something to stay in this game, I think. I think you're correct that this is going to be really hard for Aud to come back from after losing so many workers and that 4th base. Another engagement towards the Terran side of the map.
Oh boy. Well, he is wiping the Protoss ground infantry very nicely, but the architects are still at large. Need to engage on them so they don't get their missile splits. The longer their projectile travels, the more targets it can hit. So a very deadly siege unit that you can manage a lot easier if you can close the gap on it.
Oh, and we have another Protoss unit here. This thing looks like something out of Alien, a Protoss Demiurge, if I said that correctly.
Oh,
looks like
yeah.
a melee unit. Or no, it targets ground and air. Oh, this is cool.
So the way the Demiurge works, we might not actually get to see it, because I'm looking at Ayud. Yeah, I was just going to say, that's a little teaser. That's a little teaser for what the Demiurge can do. Neblime not able to actually leverage it. There was a lot of action in that game. A lot of value gained by the Vibrance. And I do think as cool as it is for Neblime to use one of the new units here, what's going to be more interesting to me is later on, once people are aware of what those new units do, because they are brand new. What's AUD 64's victory plan going to look like versus those things, right? And so, that's where we find ourselves at the end of the game. Neblime was able to secure quite a bit of an economic advantage. He held on versus the deadly mech push in the early game, and, well, the Vibrances kind of just tore AUD limb from limb at the end there, it felt like.
Yeah, that was a really, really solid game. I mean, for a long time, we couldn't really tell who was going to win, but ultimately Neblime coming out with that victory and some teaser units on top of that. What a sick game. If you guys enjoyed this cast, please consider shooting me a like and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. And for those of you who are unaware, Pronogo has a channel of his own where he does some casting. I will link his channel in the description and in the comments below as well. And we'll see you guys on the next one.